back to Quantum Astrology with your host, Julie Simmons. That's me. Today's topic is love. Well, it's not love, it's relationship, which includes love, but isn't always just about love. Those of us who've been there know that. Way back when I wrote this book, I was actually asked to write this book called Passion Signs. And it's about love and relationship, and it's an astrological guide to love. And it's from the 80s, but astrology is timeless. When I was doing the research for this little book and trying to figure out what I had to say about love that wasn't what everyone else had always said about love, I went back to astrology to tell me what to say, because that's what I always do. And I realized that the wisdom of astrology just blows my mind endlessly, and has, for all these years. So in astrology there are 12 houses, and each house is a department of life. And the first 4 houses, house 1, 2, 3, and 4, are considered to be the houses of personal houses. And the second 4 houses are 5, 6, 7, and 8, and they're the houses of social interaction and relationship houses. And then the third 4 houses, 9, 10, 11, and 12, are the houses of universality. So it has to do with religion and politics and those kinds of things. So I decided that I would look into house 5, 6, 7, and 8 and see what it told me about relationship. And sure enough, I got just everything I needed. And here's how it goes. The 5th house is the house of positive projection. The 5th house is where we fall in love. And falling in love is basically about feeling good, right? So we fall in love with people who make us feel good about ourselves, right? What we fall in love with is the fact that we can please the other person, and that they approve and delight in us, and we approve and delight in them. So it's a mutual thing, and everybody feels good. And that's what the 5th house is about. The 5th house is about love, and what you love, and how love makes you feel good. And the 6th house is the house of details. It's the getting to know you house. So after you fall in love, after you've just realized that this is the best thing that ever happened to you, then you have to give it a little test, right? And you test it in the kitchen, and you test it in the way that you spend time together. And, if one person drinks and the other person doesn't, is that a problem? And how do we fit together? How do we do things together? So that's the 6th house. Very important aspect of relationship. You don't have to agree with everything in the 6th house, but you have to work it out. And then there's the 7th house. The 7th house is the house of contracts. So in a relationship sense, the 7th house is where we become an item. It's where the relationship, so if you invite me to the party, you know that the other person's going to come with me. It's where you and the other person have a contract, or like a marriage contract even, where you have agreed to be an entity that is the relationship. So it's commitment. The 7th house is we agree to be together. And it's a funny thing in astrology, but the 7th house is the house of who you marry, but it's also the house of open enemies. It's also the house of who you meet in court. So, partners, that can happen, right? We don't like that to happen, but that can happen in the 7th house, because once you close the door on relationship, there you are. You have to negotiate, you have to work it out. And that, of course, takes us to the 8th house. And the 8th house is the most difficult of the houses, because the 8th house is, in a sense you could say, it's the opposite of the 5th house. It's where our negative projections come out. So in the 8th house, you look at your beloved and suddenly you go, oh my God, what was I thinking? You remind me of, my horrible uncle or my mother or my father or whatever it is that you don't want to be reminded of every day in your most intimate life. So it's inevitable that relationships come to this place where you have to work out your difficulties with the other person, because they're really your difficulties, right? It's not that unless the person's really treating you badly. Love always seeks to heal and to rout out the things that aren't working. So the 8th house is necessary to have a pure and noble love that will, last a lifetime. Sooner or later, you're going to come up with things that you don't like about the other person. And the more you can work those things through together, the more intimate the relationship becomes. And then you can go back to the 5th house and fall in love all over again. So in my book, in my Passion Signs book, I take each sun sign through each stage of relationship. So it's a great guide for dating, actually. And maybe I'll just say a little bit about how the sun sign works. The sun sign astrology has a bad reputation. People say it's superficial, it's trivial, there's not just 12 people in the world. But there is something that sun sign astrology is really good at. The sun in a chart is the heart's desire. It is the thing that we're most proud of, and I suppose because it's what we're most proud of, it's also the thing that we can be most, ashamed of or something. But if you take each sun sign and you put it through the test of each stage of relationship, what you get is the thing you love most, or you want most, or you aspire to most in each one of those areas. And even though it sounds ridiculous, all Aries people aspire to have a strong sense of independence and identity. Some may be more in your face about it, and some may be, more kind about it. But that's basically what Aries is about. So you can look at each sun sign through each stage of relationship and see something. And of course, you can do that with my book, which you can order on my website if you like. And so the sense of taking relationships by sun sign through stages is legitimate, but it's not everything. If you have your chart done, or if you have an astrologer look at your chart, one of the most common things that people ask me at the end of a reading a lot is, so who should I marry? Just like, by the way, and give me his address. So I can't really tell you exactly who you should marry. No astrologer can, but you can, using astrology, really describe the kind of person that would be the best relationship. So, is that a person who needs to have a conventional life or a conventional job, or more artistic, or more, somebody who has to go out into nature, whatever. You can see that in the way a chart is put together for each individual. But the common understanding of what signs get along best with each other is that signs of the same element like each other a lot. So fire signs like to stick together, which would be Aries, Sagittarius, and Leo. And earth signs are good for each other, which would be Taurus and Virgo and Capricorn. And air signs are made for each other, which would be Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And water signs, hang on to each other or stick like glue to each other, which would be Cancer and Scorpio and Pisces. But just as a little something to think about, all those signs that get along so harmoniously with each other can also support each other's worst habits. So there's no guarantee that because you have, your sun signs match in that way that you'll live happily ever after. Everybody has to do the work of those 4 stages of relationship, and the longer you stay with someone, the deeper the process gets. So I hope that gives you insight into love and relationship, and that you find it useful. And thank you for being here. Bye.